Guys, and welcome back to the Cruel Room. We're here once again in this wonderful ranty room for all things Formula 1, and we've got a championship battle on us hands, haven't we? I'm so excited, I'm so happy. We've got a fight between teams and a fight between drivers for this championship. It's amazing. Spain is not normally an exciting race, and the on-track action was hit and miss, wasn't it? Let's be honest, it was hit and miss. But the strategic game this race was phenomenal. I enjoyed it from start to finish, I've got to be honest. But I think that's more to the fact I'm just happy we have a championship battle. I'm just so happy now that it's not just the drivers on track battling, it's a team strategy and a mental game. And once again, Mercedes have delivered the package this time around, with Lewis Hamilton ultimately bringing home the goods and winning the race. After Lewis Hamilton was pretty much second for the most part of it, wasn't he? So a fantastic battle on track once again. A lot of teams up and down the midfield as well, going for 2 stops. A couple went for 3 stops as well. I don't know why. But yeah, just a nice strategic battle. So as always, if you've never seen this series before, I award the drivers out of a maximum of 10 points during a race weekend if they do particularly well. But if you do particularly badly, I can go all the way down to 0. Bonus points are on offer if you've offered something extra special to the race, and of course minus points can be offered if you delivered something of a less adequate performance, shall we say. So we're going to kick things off, as always, with the race winner, which, as mentioned already, was Lewis Hamilton. What a fantastic battle, and what a fantastic drive by him once again. He got pole, which was unexpected, because that Q2 appearance by Max and getting half a second ahead in the Q2, we were like, okay, the Red Bull have revealed the hand now, he's going to be really quick. But the wind changed direction once again in the Q3 session, which we saw a couple of races ago as well, and that meant that the second runs weren't as quick, and ultimately Hamilton put a faster timing on that first run in the Q3 session, which meant he was pole, and deservedly so. Off the line, Max looked to get a better getaway. He just popped in behind Lewis Hamilton, got the slipstream on it and made the move into turn 1, forcing him out a little bit there, a little bit naughty. But it's all fair in love and racing, as we always say, and it's a championship battle on the line. Hamilton kept sort of within the DRS range then for the most part of the race. Hamilton then decided after Max Verstappen pitted that he would go longer, and it didn't look to initially have worked out. Only a few laps later, Hamilton came in, but the deficit was around 6 seconds. And then after that, Hamilton managed to get it back down to the DRS sort of zone again. And then the Mercedes team elected to pit Hamilton for a second time, leaving Red Bull with no option but to stay out there and hope for the best. And Mercedes and Hamilton clawed him in, just pulled up, kept getting 1.7, 1.8 seconds a lap on him. A couple of times Hamilton had traffic and a couple of times Max had traffic as well. That all sort of evened itself out in the end, but ultimately, with just a few laps left to go, Hamilton made the move and he made it stick and took the win. Fantastic. What a drive, what a drive. So for Lewis Hamilton, it's going to be a full 10 points this weekend. A great race. Yeah, he did slip behind Max at the start there, but he played a really good mental game with Max, staying within that DRS zone and just outside of it, and always put Max under pressure, and ultimately a fantastic drive through the field once again, getting past all those back markers nice and cleanly, getting past his teammate as well, it has to be noted, nice and cleanly as well, because Bottas wasn't letting him through in the end, and rightfully so, and ultimately a fantastic drive. So yeah, 10 points to Lewis Hamilton. That was a fantastic drive, and I love that battle. Phenomenal stuff. Then, as mentioned, it is Max Verstappen. Once again, the bridesmaid and never the bride. He's P2 once again. He got Hungary 2019 when Mercedes pulled a similar ploy back there, and Hamilton came through for victory then, and it's happened once again. But Max did all he could this race. He led most of the race, but you can lead all of it apart from the last lap, and if you don't win, you don't win. It's as simple as that. Of course, once Hamilton got through on him, as mentioned, he then decided he was going to pit. So he pitted to get the fastest lap point, so that takes the deficit down to 6 points this race as opposed to the 7 or 8 if Hamilton would have got it, although it was looking like it was going to be Bottas, wasn't it, that was going to get that extra point in the end. So yeah, you know, Max got a 6-point deficit instead of a 7-point deficit. A little bit annoyed, of course, a bit frustrated that he'd been outpaced again, but once again Mercedes had the 2-to-1 car ratio this race, and that meant that Mercedes could do what they liked on Red Bull, and one way or another they could have potentially won or been very close to winning. So one of those things, unfortunately. But for Max Verstappen, a solid drive this race. He did lead most of the race, most notably, and a good overtake at the start there, firm but fair, but ultimately didn't deliver the win. So for that reason, for Max Verstappen, it's going to be 9 points on the board. Very solid. I was toying with 8, but I thought, no, that might be a bit too harsh on him. I've awarded him 9 points because he got that extra point for fastest lap, and I think, you know, rightfully so. There was quite a few cars trying for it, and Max ultimately got it. So 9 points, I think. Solid drive, but Not quite a perfect 10, of course, because Hamilton delivered this weekend. Next up is Valtteri Bottas finishing P3 in the end after running around P4 for like the early stages of the race, definitely within the first pit stop zone at least. He was stuck behind Charles Leclerc. And yeah, Bottas, this is going to be the last time I'm going to score him points now, and if he seriously doesn't start booking his ideas up and delivering, I'm just going to start doing him like I do with Marzi Spin. So, for Bottas this weekend, short and sweet, it's going to be 6 points. I'm a little bit generous with him there, because he didn't just move out of the way of Hamilton, and I think, you know, he said he was going to be a bit tougher in that sense, so at least he didn't do that. But he didn't have the pace to keep up with Max on similar age tyres. He didn't have the pace to follow Hamilton through while Hamilton was on his charge. He ended up about 10 seconds behind him. He didn't score the fastest lap point when they tried for it. So all in all, just a bit poor. So 6 points is probably a generous 6 at that, to be fair, but this is going to be the last time I'm going to score him points. And if he keeps being shit and keeps being this average, I'm going to start doing a Marzi Spin on him. I'm sorry, but he's annoying me now. So I've given him 6, a generous 6, to either tell him to book his ideas up, or he's going to be getting the piss taken out of him a lot more for the remainder of the Cruel Room season. So come on, Valtteri, sort yourself out, or get the piss taken out of you. It's as simple as that. I know which one I prefer. I prefer a championship battle with you in it, personally, but, you know, if you want me to take the piss, I will. So there you go. Just 6 points to Valtteri Bottas. Then we come to Sha-la-la. It's Sha-la-la once again, and he sha-la-la'd his way all the way up into P3 off the line. A fantastic getaway there. The strategy ultimately fell a little bit short. He pitted, what did he pit? He pitted a few laps later, didn't he, than Bottas, and Bottas snuck through that way, and then there was like a 10-second gap in the end. The Ferrari ultimately didn't have the pace to keep up with the Mercedes, so for the time he was ahead, he did a solid job and delivered really well. I'm not disputing that whatsoever. A fantastic qualifying once again in P4. So basically, he started P4, finished P4, but was running around in third for a good chunk of that race. So for that reason, I think I've been a little bit harsh with his scoring in recent races. I was going to award him bonus points anyway. I was going to give him 11, but I've decided I'm going to give him 12. So he's going to be the first big bonus point scorer, probably the first of the season as well, actually. But 12 points to Sha-la-la, because he is really, really doing well in that Ferrari. I didn't expect him to be this good, and to be snapping at the bit on Bottas there for a potential podium is well worth mentioning and well worth noting. So well done to Sha. That is 12 points on the Cruel Room board for you, sir. And then we come to Sergio Perez, and it's the curious case of that second car, isn't it, really? It's bizarre. Bizarre now. It's really bizarre. The car is clearly built around Max, and we know that. In qualifying, he was unlucky. He had a spin on his first fast lap run at turn 12 or 13, or whatever we're calling it these days. And yeah, ultimately that cost him, because then his second run, he wouldn't be able to go as fast as his first run had he completed it, because of the wind changing direction, like all the other cars suffered. So ultimately just lined up in P8, and that was pathetic. Clawed through to finish P5. He just got Ricardo at the end there towards the latter stage of the race. P5 though, not very good. So for that reason it's a middle of the road 5 for P5 for Sergio Perez. You know, I want to see him do better, but ultimately, he's just not there. Next up is Daniel Ricciardo, and as mentioned, he fended off Perez for the majority of the race, so well done to him for that. Finishing ahead of his teammate after out-qualifying his teammate. This is it now. We've got Ricardo. I said he'd be good from Monaco onwards, but he's good here. He's always been good around here as Ricardo, and he's done well once again. Out-racing and out-qualifying his teammate, who has been out-racing and out-qualifying him for the most part of this season. So, race 4, we're into it now, and he has got his heels going, and he is finishing in great positions here. P6, probably the best he could have hoped for. Ultimately, you know, I think McLaren is faster than Ferrari on it at any other given day, but the way it worked out, Charles was just far too quick and already up the road by the time Ricardo got some clear air. Ultimately, though, Ricardo, fantastic drive, fantastic race this race, and it's going to be 9 points on the board for him, so well done to Daniel Ricciardo. Found his feet at McLaren now. I'm expecting to do really well at Monaco. I really am. We know how well he goes around there, so I'm expecting more of the same, and hopefully those couple of races, 2 good races, will give him the boost to carry the season on now, and Ricardo will have found his feet once again. So well done, Danny Rick, the first proper race we've seen here, and that's a solid 9 points on the board. Well done to him. And then we come to Carlos Sainz, and oh, it's just a goodish race once again, isn't it, by Carlos? A bit of a shame once again. Out-qualified, out-raced by Charles. We know it's difficult to get into grips with a Ferrari, especially a Ferrari that's not really up there. But he did a solid enough job, but I just want to see more from him. I want to see him get up there with Leclerc, so I was hoping Spain might have been the race, its own Grand Prix. I know there's no fans, but you always feel that little bit of something special, don't you? But yeah, it just didn't happen this weekend, did it really? It'd be nice to see him get ahead of Ricardo. He was chomping at the bit at the end there, to be fair, so did have a good race in that sense. But just a little bit disappointed in the first few races that we've seen of Sainz. So for that reason, for Carlos Sainz, it's just going to be 6 points on the board. Might be a little bit harsh, that, considering I give Bottas 6, but Sainz has got opportunity to score more points in the cruel room going forward, whereas this is Bottas' last chance saloon. So yeah, Sainz, I want to see him do well, and that's really reflected in that score. A little bit disappointed with him this weekend. I expected him to be a bit closer to his teammate, and ultimately he wasn't. He was quite a way behind. But fingers crossed, you know, Monaco ahead. Going to be crucial Saturday, so he needs to get his qualifying head on there. And fingers crossed we can get some better races from him in future races. But ultimately he's up against a really good teammate, isn't he? But I just want to see more. So well done, I guess, to Sainz, but I want to see more from you. And then we come to Lando Norris, the first poor race of the season by him, really, wasn't it? Out-qualified by his teammate and out-raced by his teammate. Didn't really see much progress from him either, did we? Qualified P9, finished P8, so only really beat Ocon that qualified ahead of him. Yeah, poor race by Norris's standards and by what we've seen of him this season. Yeah, another double points finish though for the McLaren team, the only team to do that so far this season, and have continued that momentum forward. So that's good for them. It's 4 more points on the constructors for them, but not a typical Lando race this race, was it? So for that reason, it's going to be a middle-of-the-road 5 for Lando Norris. Disappointing to say the least there. Wasn't what we've seen of him in recent races, but it's points on the board. But I just want to see more. I expect him to be a superstar every race now, and this race he wasn't. So, got to be harsh on him at some point, and here's my chance to be harsh. So, 5 points to Lando Norris. And then, as mentioned, the only car he finished ahead of that out-qualified him was Esteban Ocon. Ocon, the car slipped away, didn't it, from him? Let's be honest. The Alpine, whatever we want to call it, ultimately just slipped away from the pair of them. It slipped away from Ocon and Alonso too. So, yeah, a solid race by Ocon to pick up a couple of points in a fading car, it must be said. He was struggling at the end there, wasn't he, bless him. But ultimately, a fantastic qualifying P5. P5 on the grid. Unbelievable. I was expecting a lot better from the race, but I could see that it was the car because it was affecting both drivers as opposed to the driver himself. So, for that reason, I think he did well to hang on to the couple of points. I'd have loved to have seen him finish ahead of Lando, but it wasn't to be. And for that reason, for Esteban Ocon, it's 7 points. 7 points on the grid there, on the board for the crawl room. I think he did a good race with the car he had, and at the end of the race he was lucky to hang on to the points paying position. But, unfortunately, just wasn't the best we've seen him in this season. So, for that reason, 7 points to Esteban Ocon. And the final points paying position comes to Pierre Gasly. And the AlphaTauri didn't look to have the ultimate pace this weekend, did it? He qualified, was it 12th or 13th? It was definitely out of Q2, and he was nowhere near Q3. So, yeah, mid-pack in Q2. Oh, it looked like it was going to go wrong for him, didn't he? He had a 5-second time penalty for lining up out of his grid position. So without that, he could have maybe snapped ahead of Ocon without that 5 seconds there. He served that in the pit lane, of course, which looks so slow, doesn't it, when they're just there. Freeze frame. Can't move. Can't move. Okay, we can now. And, yeah, Gasly, just a shame, really, for that. But ultimately picking up 1 point at the end in a massive squabble with the Aston Martins, Alonso, Ocon, who else was in there? Raikkonen was in there as well, wasn't he, in the Alfa Romeo? Russell was up there as well, let's not forget about him. So, big battle at the end, and ultimately he was the one that picked up that final points-paying position. So, well done to him. For that reason, it's going to be 7 points on the board for Gasly. I don't think the car was as good as it could have been this weekend. Gasly wasn't as good as he could have been this weekend, but clawed through and scored 1 point for AlphaTauri, but look at how good we thought they were going to be, and we didn't really expect them to be just picking up 1 and 2 points, did we? So that's why it's just 7 points to Gasly, but impressed overall with his finish. Just how he got there was a bit scruffy. And just finishing outside the points is Lance Stroll. Oh, Lance. Once again, the Aston Martin not looking good at all, is it? What a poor performance by them once again. No points on the board. You know, Lance, it looked like he could have scored a couple of points there, but Ocon nipped through, and then Gasly nipped through, and then that was that, and then he was off the track and then back on it again. I don't know if he's going to get a penalty for that, but it doesn't matter anyway, because he's outside the points. But yeah, he was in that gaggle and ultimately didn't get that point, did he? So for Lance, unfortunately, I can't really give him much more than a 6. Probably a little bit harsh there, given what the car was doing and what he could have done with it. But I'd have just liked to have seen him cling on to that final points-paying position, but wasn't to be. Yeah, so just 6 points to Lance. I think that's a solid score. I think once we get past Monaco, we can see realistically where Aston Martin is as a solid contender, but at the minute they just seem a bit up and down. They seem to be both in the points and then they tumble out, or both out the points and then one gets in, one doesn't. It's just a bit up in the air with those at the minute. So 6 points for Aston Martin at the moment, with Lance Stroll, of course, and yeah, Aston Martin just not delivered on what we thought it were going to promise us, did we? So there you go, one of those things, but just 6 to Lance. And then finishing P12 is Kimi Raikkonen. A fantastic drive by him, it must be said. He made a one-stop work, would you believe? A one-stop, starting on the mediums and going on to the softs at the end there. And ultimately clawed his way through, but I think his softs just dropped off and couldn't get past the couple of cars ahead that he needed to get past to secure a points-paying position. But a good race, a solid race by Kimi Raikkonen. Another P12 finish by Alfa Romeo. That seems to be where they belong, although they do belong in the points, and I think the points are imminent. They're going to be coming. I think they were chomping at the heels, weren't they? They were certainly biting the nails quite a lot when we saw Russell up there in P10 and P11, but Raikkonen was able to finish ahead. So for that reason, Kimi Raikkonen, a solid race by him. It's going to be 8 points on the board. Well done to Kimi. Impressed with that one. Made up for what he made his mistakes of Portimao being out on lap 1 after hitting the back of his teammate. He delivered a solid race this race, so proved he still got it and proved that Portimao was just a one-off. And then in 13th, unlucky for some, it's unlucky for Sebastian Vettel, because here he is out the points once again. P13, well, outdriven by your teammate as well, who finished out the points still, but a couple of places ahead of you. Not going well, is it? It's not going well. It's not rejuvenated him in any way, shape or form. He'll be thinking, fuck me, why didn't I just retire? And no, I think that's... If he's not got those thoughts, then I've no idea. Unless he's thinking, hey, P13, best I could have done. I've got a fat check in my back pocket. I can't wait to cash it in and buy myself a speedboat. Well, you know, you don't know how he feels, do you? But ultimately, it was a crap race by Sebastian Vettel. And for that reason, for Sebastian Vettel, it is just going to be 4 points on the board. I was going to be a bit harsh with him and not give him anything, but I think 4's all right. He can have some points. I'll let him have them. He can have them. But yeah, still not a good race by him once again, and Aston Martin struggling. And then we come to George Russell. What could be said for George? It looked like a bad start off the line after another Q2 appearance. He was stuck behind Mick Schumacher for a good number of laps. But then Williams tried the pit stop behind the safety car, and that looked to have worked, didn't it? They got a free pit stop there, jumped the Hassers, so he didn't really have to overtake them on track. Well, he did, but they were on a lot older tyres, so he made it a lot easier. Got rid of those, got past Giovinazzi with his problems in the pits, and then clawed his way through up to P10, P11 area. But once again, the car no good in combat. He was on older tyres compared to the ones around him, and stumbled down to P14. But I think this was a good race by George. It was a better race by George. And there we go. We saw him fighting for the points this time, whereas before he just tumbles down the back of the order and stays there. So this time it was a nice surprise to see him up there come the end of the race. Ultimately led to nothing, but I think that was more the car and the tyres this time around. So for George, not a perfect weekend. Stuck behind Mick Schumacher for the first part of the race didn't help. Williams' strategy assisted in getting him up there, but it's a solid 7 points, and I think he needs to take that from me, George, because you've not been doing very well on the Cruel Room, have you? So 7 points to George there is a good score, so well done to him for this weekend. And in 15th place is Antonio Giovinazzi, the Italian stallion once again. Unlucky once again as well, it must be said. What a shame by Giovinazzi. He had problems in Imola where he could have scored points, and he's had problems here today where he could have maybe got ahead of his teammate. He'd have certainly been in that battle for the final point, and who knows what could have happened. But sadly, he was taken out of it by the fact he made a pit stop in the safety car, and you thought, good strategy here. Put the mediums on, and the guy that was fitting the tyre was like, doink, doink, doink. This one's flat, lads. Can we have another set, please? I mean, I don't think I've ever seen that in Formula 1. The front left tyre was flat, and it was a brand new medium compound tyre, so something wrong with the valve potentially, or fitting the tyres cut the bead of the tyre so the air's seeped out. But a real shame for Antonio. He lost 35 seconds in that pit stop, and he'd not caught up to the back of the crocodile after the safety car came in. He was 10 seconds behind Marzispin, after the safety car came in, so he did not get onto the back of that gaggle, which is why I'm going to award him 7 points for finishing P15 overall. Yes, I know, I'm aware he was only ahead of Latifi, 2 Haas's and Alonso that made a last stop, but I think for the fact he was in and around that area after being 10 seconds behind a safety car restart and clawing his way back through, and sometimes at some points when others were pitting, he was getting ahead of him a little bit. So I think Antonio, it's a little bit of sympathy points there with him. Maybe 1 sympathy point there, but 7 points is certainly deserved because he was on the back of Raikkonen once again and would have finished around there. It's just a case of what could have been. So well done, Antonio! 7 points to you, but the race didn't go your way once again, did it? And then here we go, it's Nick Latifi once again, isn't it? And a shite race by him, but I'm going to give him 2 points. I don't really want to talk about him that much because he was a bit boring, a bit pathetic, and I've not really got that much to say. But ultimately, I think the Williams strategy of pitting him in during the first safety car, and the only safety car of the race, I think that got him ahead of the Haas's, and without that, I think he'd have been in for a tough afternoon with Mick Schumacher once again. So I think he has his team to thank as to the reasons why he finished ahead of Mick for definite, and he didn't finish ahead of Mick in qualifying, did he? Lining up P19. So just 2 points. I think that's a generous 2 as well. And yeah, Latifi, pay driver, doesn't deserve to be there. Get off the grid. 2 points. Much love. And then it's Fernando Alonso, and once again it looked like the Alpines had the pace to get through the field. He was on the back of Ocon, wasn't he, in that 9th, 10th area, and then ultimately Alonso tumbled away. Had to make a last pit stop. I don't know why he pitted again. Maybe we're going to lose that much time, or maybe the tyre was puncturing, something happened, but either way he was out the points when he did pit ultimately. So the pace had gone in the car, the tyres had gone. And there he is all the way down here with the likes of Latifi and the Haas's. So a big shame for Alonso. Could have maybe scraped a point or two had he not all gone wrong for him. I think the pace of the Alpine, as we saw with Ocon, just dropped away at the end there. Strategy playing a part as well. So yeah, for Alonso, he was out qualified by Ocon by quite a margin. He was out raced by Ocon for quite a margin, and then had a problem and had a 3rd pit stop, and what a shame for them. But ultimately it's just 4 points on the board for Alonso. He's getting outdriven by his French teammate, who a lot of people have said he's overrated. I personally rate Ocon, and I always have done. When we got to Bahrain and Alonso was doing well and Ocon was shite, I thought, uh-oh, I'm going to be proven wrong here. But the last 3 races, although Alonso's got good, I think Ocon has delivered more solid performances, and once again this is it. So for that reason, just 4 points to Fernando Alonso. And then we come to Mick Schumacher, and as mentioned, in qualifying, he out-qualified Nicholas Latifi by a couple of tenths and made a mistake in turn 1 by his own admission, which could have put him ahead of Kimi Raikkonen, which is unbelievable stuff, isn't it? If we'd have seen that, that would have been unbelievable. But nonetheless, an impressive qualifying, an impressive start to the race ahead of both Williams and his teammate, of course, in P17, P16, somewhere around there. Great drive in that sense. And then ultimately, as mentioned, Williams pitted, that let him through. And then it was pretty much just a case of battling with his own teammate once again, who he ended up 30 seconds ahead of anyway. So that wasn't really a battle, and it was just on his own. But a great start to the race and a great qualifying. So for that reason, it's 9 points on the board to Mick Schumacher. I think that's a great effort by him once again in a car that is at the back of the grid, and he's putting something in it to make it not line up on the back row. Great effort and a great race at the start there. So well done, Mick Schumacher. 9 points to you. And then we come to Nikita Mazepin's spin. And what can we say to Nikita Mazepin's spin other than blue flags, blue flags, blue flags. Get the fuck out of the way. Move, bitch. Get out the way. Get out the way, bitch. Get out the way. That's right, he's at the back, he's doing crap, he's blocking people in qualifying and qualifying 20th and getting a 3-place grid drop for the good cause of falling. I just don't know anymore. I just don't know. And then he got in the way of Hamilton while Hamilton was trying to catch up to Verstappen, wasn't it? So it's just a nightmare. Once again, get off the grid. So for that reason, it's just going to be twat on the cruel room. We don't score in points. We don't really talk about his race overall, apart from the bad bits. He had a couple of spins in practice again as well, did he? He did, of course he did, yeah, how could I forget? It's a customary, but he didn't do any damage. That's about the only positive there, but yeah, there you go, Nikita Mazepin's spin. Twat. And last but by no means least, the only retirement of this race is Yuki Tsunoda.
Palm of the week, you twat.
Oh, Yuki, what could be said for Yuki Tsunoda other than disappointing? He was shouting and whinging in qualifying, he had a spat in free practice, didn't he? With a like, calm down, Yuki, you don't need to be shouting and swearing over the radio, it's practice, calm your tits, muffin. And then in the race, he tumbled behind. Yes, that was it. He tumbled behind Mick Schumacher and George Russell, so well done to Mick for that as well. But yeah, Tsunoda, and then ultimately the engine just went, right, I'm off, pal, see you later. I'll see you for Monaco, yeah, if you can be asked to qualify, whatever, much love. Yeah, the engine decided it was going to switch itself off, and that was that. So yeah, poor race weekend by Yuki Tsunoda, and that's why he is Palmer of the Week this week. So there you go, guys, that is the rundown of the 2021 grid of the Spanish Grand Prix. Let me know your thoughts and feedback down below as always. Did I score any too high, any too low? What did you think to the race? I thought it was okay. I thought it was a strategic battle. Exciting in that sense, that's for sure. And as always, the Cruel Room scores are on the screen now. And there you go. Thanks very much to Mushy Gaming Dan for awarding these scores and keeping it going, because without Mushy Gaming, this series will be more pointless than it already is, because I wouldn't even keep a track of the scores I am scoring. So massive thank you to Mushy Gaming for the points table, as well as the intro, of course. And a massive thank you to Dave, F1 Games PlayStation, for the Jolie and Palmer skits. As always, massively appreciated from you guys. So there you go, guys. Thanks a lot for watching. I'll see you all next time for the Monaco Grand Prix. I might bring a sleeping bag and a pillow, because that one might be a bit boring. So as always, I'll see you all next time, guys. Thanks a lot for watching, and much love.